Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching this program. If you are watching this recorded version of the webinars, you probably downloaded this or accessed this from the diocese website. Where you found the link to this, you'll also see a link to two documents, the template that I provided for you and another worksheet to help you complete the mapping projects and profile of your parish or your church. Go ahead and download those documents prior to watching this video, and thank you so much for your participation. I hope this is helpful. When you're done, if you need additional assistance or want some additional information, my contact information will be provided. Please feel free to reach out. Thanks so much. Good luck. This webinar is Parish Emergency Operations Planning Session 1, Beginning the Basic Plan. During our initial workshops, I introduced you to this model for capabilities-based planning. I want to review it briefly because it's important to assuring your plan addresses all hazards, all people during all activities at your parish. Remember, we never start our planning process by drafting a list of procedures. If we do this, we may end up with procedures that do not reflect our capabilities. We may miss populations of people that we fail to identify, or we may not account for all the various activities that take place at your parish. Remember to start by defining your policy, assessing your capabilities, defining who you serve with your plan, and then identify threats and hazards. By establishing a solid understanding of these issues, you'll develop a plan that best meets your needs. Your policy should drive your procedures. Your procedures do not drive your policy. Whether you're joining us to develop a brand new plan or updating an existing plan or to verify whether or not your plan meets the criteria for high quality, you can use capabilities-based planning approach to achieve your outcome. For those of you with parish schools, I would encourage you to determine what policies overlap with the school plan. You want to make sure that the school plan and the parish plan do not conflict. This can happen if there's an expectation that both have the availability to the same resources. For example, students at your school in a large senior citizenship program probably could not all occupy the same sanctuary space at the same time if an evacuation became necessary. If you can determine points of conflicting policy in advance, you can plan around them and integrate policies into supporting each other in the emergency. Of course, you should always be prepared to identify new policy areas of conflict as you go. This is completely normal. We'll be using the 6-step planning method as discussed in the guide for developing high-quality emergency operations plans in houses of worships. I'll make a few assumptions as we move forward from here. In the workshops, we talked about forming collaborative planning teams. I'm assuming you've started that process or at least started identifying team members. You can begin forming a common framework for planning. During these courses of webinars, we'll use the FEMA guide to developing the operations plans as our model. How you implement that model within your parish is completely up to you. I'll also assume that you've already downloaded the FEMA guide and you've defined the roles and responsibilities of team members. I'm also considering that you've figured out a regular schedule of meetings. So a planning template and a worksheet have been posted on the diocese website to assist you with your planning. Each month, I'll provide you with a new section of the template and materials to help you continue through the process. If you have questions or need additional clarification, please feel free to contact me and we can set up an additional meeting time. You'll find those resources on the website under the quick links. You'll see resources, select that, then go to the safety option on the left. Immediately beneath that, then you'll see a selection for emergency operations planning. During the workshops, we discussed the format of the plan that you'll be using to update or develop a plan. This diagram depicts the format of your emergency operations plan. The numbered sections would represent the headings for each section of your plan. The functional and threat annex titles would be specific to your parish based on your threat assessment. While these headings may be consistent in most plans, the content is specifically designed to meet the needs and capabilities of your parish. Don't let the numbers and the headings intimidate you. The amount of information that's developed on each heading for a church is not too extensive. This same format would be used for a county plan or a large business plan, so you can imagine under some instances the information would be extensive. For our purpose, it shouldn't be too bad. If you've already developed a plan, this would be an opportunity to confirm that your plan contains all the necessary elements. These headings coincide with the structure outlined in the FEMA Comprehensive Preparedness Guide 101 and represent identified and tested best practices. An emergency operations plan is made up of 3 parts. There's the basic plan that defines who the plan serves, provides contact information, identifies who created the plan, and how the disaster is managed. The annexes are very similar to the procedures some of you have already written. The functional annexes are procedures that are common to many types of disasters, such as evacuation, reunification families, or your communication plan. These types of activities would be done the same no matter what the disaster be. The threat annexes are those actions that would be dependent upon the type of disaster, such as fire, a tornado, a gas leak, or a hostile intruder. Before you can write the annexes, you need to develop a base plan that describes how your parish manages and communicates in an emergency. You also need a clear picture of who your plan serves and the needs of your congregation. Who's in charge? How do you communicate within the parish and within the community? Who has the authority to activate the plan? Who speaks on behalf of the parish? Who does the plan serve? What resources are available to you in an emergency? What specific needs exist in your parish family? These are all important aspects that need to be considered before we can decide what the appropriate action in an emergency might be. We'll begin our planning and assessment process by introducing you to the basic plan format and content. The basic plan contains 10 key parts. This portion of the plan provides an overview of your planning and response practices and defines your operations. In emergency management, we often talk about the importance of the parameters of your responsibilities or staying in your lane. This portion of the plan defines your lane and helps you identify the curbs. It also helps to establish the boundaries of collaborative relationships with your response partners. The basic plan also assists with understanding the requirements for training and exercises of your plan, how your response capabilities will be administered and tracked, and finally, what legal or diocesan level authorities support the roles and responsibilities you identify. In this session, we'll begin by completing sections 1 and 2. Development of an introductory material that provides the historic references and authorities, identifies the purpose for developing the plan by developing a profile of your church population, and increasing understanding of the layout of your parish and its key features. The signatory page should include those individuals from your parish responsible for developing and improving the plan. These signatures provide a great historic record of who participated in overseeing the project for future reference. It also indicates that the authorities in charge in a disaster agree to the policies and procedures described in this plan. The implementation section simply tells the reader that this plan applies to an all hazards identified plan by a planning team during the assessment process. This is not a plan for one specific type of threat or hazard. This is not a tornado plan, a fire plan, an active shooter plan. This is an all hazards plan. Be sure and include the date that the plan became effective. Emergency operations plans are fluid, and by definition, we never consider them complete. This is because we may improve or modify our resource capabilities every time we exercise our plan. We may also make major changes to our plan following an incident as we review our plan after action reports and evaluate where our response efforts may improve. All changes to the plan must be recorded. I recommend a simple table to track a brief summary of each change, including the date of the change and who completed the update. These changes are not arbitrary or unauthorized. They're based on the policy for changes established by the planning team, and it's identified in the basic plan. You will see in the template where I made reference to the policies regarding changes. You'll want to make updates or revision to your plan and then make sure that those updates are distributed to the relevant parties. A simple table may be used to record the distribution of updated plans to assure that all interested parties receive copies. The table of contents will fill out as we go. Don't worry about it now, just leave a blank page. The purpose section provides the reader with a description of what the plan was intended to accomplish. The purpose of the Emergency Operations Plan is to outline the responsibilities and duties of parish staff, volunteers, ushers, or other designated parties in an emergency. The plan educates these individuals and other stakeholders on their roles and responsibilities during, before, and after an incident. The plan addresses an all-hazards approach to dealing with incidents and is formulated around a capabilities-based model. I provided sample language in the template. If your parish also has a school, it's recommended that as much of your plan as possible be standardized between the parish and the school to reduce confusion for personnel serving both entities and for area response agencies. The scope of the Emergency Operations Plan outlines the expectations of everyone involved in the response. It identifies the direction and control system. It identifies internal and external communication plans. It outlines the frequency and types of training and defines the roles and responsibilities, again, before, during, and after an incident. This plan also includes references and authorities referenced by the diocesan level policy. It also mandates and identifies specific threats and vulnerabilities. It's important that you understand who the plan serves and the geographical, physical, or cultural aspects that may impact the plan on your response capabilities. A worksheet's been provided to assist planning teams with identification of key elements that may impact the plan content and be a factor in response to an emergency. Things to consider might include the vicinity to water for flooding, railroad tracks for hazardous material transport, social or cultural issues within the community, the age of your building, etc. First, the planning team should provide an overview of the population at each parish. This includes both staff and volunteer populations who regularly are present in the building. You may want to add regular volunteers to this list. The plan should give an indication of who is present in the building regularly and at approximately what time of day. The team should also identify any characteristics of parish attendees that may impact their ability to comply with directions or standard operating procedures. The team should also identify the number of individuals that will need assistance due to limited mobility, and certainly this can be an estimate. The planning team may identify where these individual needs are, but you should never put specific names in a plan. The team should provide a detailed description of the parish to first responders in an emergency. This includes a physical description of the property, the daily schedule of masses or evening events, any kind of detailed maps. This section should include a profile of the physical ground, such as the approximate area of the parish grounds and schedules. Every parish should develop a map of their property and each individual building located on the premises. The maps will be provided to law enforcement offices and fire departments. I provided you with a suggested list of key elements on the Session 1 worksheet. You may want to check with these response partners to ensure that the information on the map includes details relevant to their response. Check with local law enforcement and fire departments regarding how they want to use the maps in their response effort. Some counties have computer-assisted dispatch that can transfer images of these maps to responders in an emergency, such as Smart 911. Others may need hard copies of the maps in advance of an emergency, while others appreciate a hard copy on arrival. How the maps will be accessed in an emergency may be dependent on the dispatch center in your county or region. These maps can be done in a fancy CAD program, or you can simply draw them on paper, scan them, and upload to your response partners via email. This section of your plan should identify any geographical issues in the area that pose an increased threat or may impact response efforts, such as your proximity to water, power plants, railroads, chemical plants, anhydrous ammonia plants. This should also include information regarding EMS response times. In some areas of Iowa, the EMS response times can be as high as 15 or 20 minutes. This is really important in your planning process because if you have an emergency where someone is either bleeding or needing immediate medical care, you should know if your EMS services will arrive within 2 or 3 minutes or as long as 15 or 20 minutes. You may also want to consider issues of vehicle access to your building in an emergency. A single road onto the premises may be problematic at a time if there's traffic. You want to take some time in the next month to conduct a hazard analysis risk assessment. This assessment helps determine the actual level of risks associated with a threat by estimating the degree of impact associated with 4 specific criteria. The criteria used in our assessment includes the probability or likelihood the event will occur, the magnitude or effect it will have on the premise, the warning time, and the duration or impact. Use this table to help identify which threats and hazards will be included in the annex of your plan. I've included this table in your workshop. You list the threats or hazards relevant to your particular parish in column 1. You can work with county emergency management coordinators if you want to assure that the threats identified in the county hazard mitigation plan are included. Apply the estimated numerical value for each listed criteria. The criteria for estimating numerical value is open to interpretation by your team. Just be sure to apply the criteria consistently to each threat. Calculate the total sum of each row. The threats or hazards, obviously with the highest number, should be identified as high. Those with mid-range numbers are considered medium, and those with low scores are, of course, low-level threats. The threats and hazards identified in the risk assessment process will be included in your threat and hazard annexes of your plan. It's recommended that you also complete an annex for at least one threat or hazards from each of the following categories: natural hazards, technological hazards, biological hazards, and adversarial or human-caused threats. Completing one of each type of hazard during this planning period will give you experience that can be carried over into all other hazards. I would recommend that you start with a natural hazard or biological hazard, and that you move on to the man-made or human-caused threats later. These are far more difficult. They have far more agencies involved and are much more complex. So start with something easy. A tornado alert or even a fire would be something very simple to start with, and then move up to the more difficult hazards. We're going to be doing these together later in future webinars. So at this time, all I want you to do is identify which threats you're going to be addressing in your particular plan. We'll take care of the details later. Complete the introductory material in sections 1 through 3 of your template, and that includes the list you see here: the cover page, the signature page, records of changes, and the record of distribution. Then use the worksheets I've provided to develop the profile of your parish, your staff, and your volunteers. Complete the maps on your campus or on your premises and each building, and include all agreed upon key elements. Your schools are also doing the same activity, and they may need some assistance in identifying the locations on their campus. And then determine how these maps will be used with your emergency management partners. If you need some assistance with that, please let me know, and I'll help connect you to your dispatch center through your emergency management agency. That's the end of this session. Our next upcoming session 2 will be on November 21st at 2 o'clock. We'll be covering planning assumptions, the concept of operations, and roles and responsibilities. As with this particular webinar, each section with its templates will be located on the diocese website. You're certainly welcome to go and download those in advance. They're usually there within a day or two. To request any technical support for your team via these Zoom meetings, certainly feel free to contact me. This is Jane Kolachecki. My email address and phone number are provided. I want to thank you so much for taking the time and effort to commit yourself to this project and for the work that you're doing to improve the preparedness of your community. I know that this is a great community-based project, and I'm really pleased to be part of this. Thank you so much. I look forward to working with you again. Bye-bye.